Hi, this is Dr. Carol Reese, back with you again, and we're just kind of continuing our topic that I talked about last week, where we were talking about weight loss and how weight loss isn't for everybody. One of the things that I like to bring to people's attention is the fact that there is something called a pleasure trap. And the pleasure trap is when we become addicted to food and we don't realize that we have become addicted to food. So want to talk a little bit about how that gets started. Sometimes what happens is this can actually get started even when we are just babies, because if our moms ever fed us formula, if you ever look at the first ingredient in most formulas, it's actually sugar. So sugar is very, very addictive to the brain. Sugar helps to release that dopamine, or that pleasure hormone, and anytime that we consume sugar or high carbs, then we get that dopamine release. Well, what's interesting is the same thing happens with people who are alcoholics. The same thing happens with people who are addicted to cocaine or heroin. They get this dopamine release, this pleasure hormone release. So you think about it, it's kind of funny, when we think about it, or at least I know that with my kids, it's like, once they got off the formula, well, actually I breastfed, but once, we started introducing food to them, it used to be back in the day that the first thing you would give them would be like rice cereal, which is basically rice ground down into a flour. So it's a very concentrated form of rice, which makes it more like a high carb food. So we're giving our babies like high carb foods. I even gave them like the teething biscuits, and bananas. So those were some of their first foods. So when we think about that, some of these first foods that we give our babies also makes them want more of the same thing. It makes them want more of those high carbs. So now we have toddlers, right? So now they've gone from baby to toddler. And you go to a restaurant and you look at the menu, and the menu is all high carbs. It's like grilled cheese sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or it's macaroni and cheese, or it's spaghetti, right? So it's like, oh my goodness, we don't stop and think about these things. So I get a lot of people that come in our office and they say, my child is 7 or 6 and they hate vegetables. They won't even eat fruit. They're only eating these high carb foods. They're eating pizza, they're eating macaroni and cheese, or spaghetti. And so this is kind of like the evolution of how we end up becoming addicted to food. So when they did these MRIs of people who had food addictions, it looks similar to the brains of people who had alcohol addictions. So when they looked at an obese person's brain and compared it with an alcoholic person's brain, they looked the same. So when you think about that, because alcohol deteriorates the brain, well, so do all these food addictions. It acts the same way. So it starts to deplete the brain's ability to make dopamine. So it's like the more high carbs you have, the more the brain wants. And that is why it's so hard to get off food addiction. So a couple of questions that you can ask yourself to find out, do I have a food addiction? Is this just emotional eating? Because there's emotional eating too, right? When we get sad or depressed or things aren't going our way, we get stressed, and we may reach for chocolate, or there may be, a favorite food that we have. Sometimes we do fatigue eating, where it's nighttime and, we're tired, but we want to get something done, or we're watching television, and so we grab food and we just start eating food. Basically, it kind of keeps us awake. So the questions you can ask yourself: do you crave or sometimes obsess over food, even if you're not hungry? Do you want to stop eating and you realize that you're full, but you keep eating anyway? Do you eat large portions of food beyond what is like a normal serving size, but you keep eating even though okay, I should only have one piece of meat and instead you have two, or you should have one serving of whatever, rice or quinoa, but you have two servings, and you know you should stop eating, but you eat larger portions than what you really need. Do you eat when you're not really hungry? Do you ever find yourself doing that? Like, okay, I want something, I'm going to eat, but you're not really hungry. Do you ever throw your food away and then go back and get it out of the trash? Do you eat in secretly different than you eat in public? Do you binge eat? Or do you, closet eat? Or do you go in the kitchen when nobody's around you and grab, something and you shove it in your mouth so that nobody can see you? Have you ever hidden food to make sure that you have enough food when you have company, but you want to make sure you have enough food after the company leaves, so you hide food? Have you ever taken someone else's food, maybe a family member's food that's in the refrigerator, and it's like, you can't resist it. I'm going to eat it. I know it's his or hers, but I'm going to eat it anyway. Have you ever done that? Have you ever felt guilty about not being able to control your food intake? Have you ever felt hopeless about weight control or even controlling food intake? And have you ever canceled plans because food was more important to you than following through with socializing? So these are some of the questions that you can ask yourself. And if you need help with any of these, or if you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm here to help you. My name is Dr. Carol Reese. I'm with Quantum Alternative Health. You can always call 770-755-6525. Thank you.